Psychologists have been studying a particular skill since the 1950s, and the results are very clear. People who develop this skill are more confident, less anxious, and better at handling pressure. Research also shows that they tend to have stronger relationships and greater emotional control. People who don't tend to struggle. So what is this skill? Let's take a look at what psychology discovered. Life in society requires consensus as an indispensable condition, but consensus, to be productive, requires that each individual contribute independently. Solomon Asch stated this after his conformity experiments in 1951. In the years that followed World War II, people often questioned how a reasonable society like Germany could follow such a social system like Nazism. In this experiment, participants were influenced into giving an answer that opposed the obvious truth. Humans naturally conform under pressure. And just how close is conformity to people-pleasing? Does a neighbor conflict avoidance? When social pressure, the desire to fit in, and agreeableness become the expectation, will you have the strength to go against the grain? Standing up to pressure is not automatic. It's a skill. In 1966, Julian Rotter, American psychologist and major figure in social learning theory, wanted to understand whether people believe their actions mattered or not. He wanted to study why some people take action and others give up. What he found was that those who had the mindset of "I affect the outcome" were more likely to believe their actions had a significant impact. Rotter found that people could be split between two groups: those who have an internal versus external locus of control. People with an internal locus of control believe their actions influence outcomes and their effort matters. Those with an external locus of control believe in things like luck and fate, or that circumstances control life. This causes them to feel powerless in their own lives. But how do you actually change this way of thinking? Manuel J. Smith's work focused on why people struggle to say no. He believed many people have large fears around disapproval and conflict. These same people would often become overly agreeable to avoid tension. Smith argued we have basic psychological rights, what we would call boundaries today. These boundaries include the right to say no or change your mind, the right to make mistakes and not have to constantly justify yourself. If you want to live a healthy life, you need to not only understand what your boundaries are, but also how to enforce them. If only there was somewhere you could practice holding your boundaries. Albert Bandura was a Canadian-American psychologist and a major figure in social learning theory, as well as cognitive and behavioral psychology. He introduced the concept of self-efficacy in 1977. Self-efficacy is a person's belief in their ability to handle challenges and succeed in specific situations. Bandura discovered confidence was not built through positive thinking or affirmations, but through successful experiments. His research found that people with high self-efficacy believe they can handle difficult situations better, or more likely to take action and recover quickly from setbacks. Whereas people with low self-efficacy avoid challenging situations, give up easily, and freeze under pressure. He discovered belief changes behavior, but for the belief in yourself to exist, you need repeated successful experiences. Joseph Wolpe was a South American psychiatrist and psychologist and one of the major founders of behavioral therapy. He was best known for systematic desensitization, which helped lay the foundations for modern exposure therapy. Exposure therapy is based around a simple idea. Avoidance strengthens fear, whereas exposure weakens it. By gradually and repeatedly facing your fears, the weight of them eventually drops. What once seemed so frightening can become a small afterthought if given enough exposure. By repeatedly confronting whatever it was that scared you, people reduce fear and increase confidence in their ability to handle any form of a stressful situation. The issue is life rarely presents people with opportunities for us to stand up for ourselves. I wonder if a place exists where you can purposely be put under pressure and then coached in how to navigate it. Donald Meichenbaum developed his concept of stress inoculation training in the 1970s. The concept is simple. Controlled exposure to manageable stress builds resilience. Meichenbaum compared it to a vaccine in that you adapt over time and build greater resistance later. The goal was not to eliminate stress. The goal was to teach people how to function under stress. His research found that people perform better under pressure when they experience manageable stress beforehand and, in that process, develop coping strategies. These strategies wouldn't be found if the participant wasn't put through a stress test beforehand. When people do well with stress, they found themselves to be overall calmer, more adaptive, and more resilient. But where could you possibly go to be intentionally stress tested? Andrew Saltner was an American psychologist and early pioneer of behavioral psychology and assertiveness training in the 1940s. He wanted to understand why some people freeze, avoid conflict, or avoid freely expressing themselves. He believed many psychological problems came from emotional inhibition and fear of direct expression. Saltner also taught that assertiveness is a learnable and trainable behavioral skill. It is not a personality trait. He found that people become more confident and more emotionally stable when they practice direct communication, emotional expression, and stand up for themselves. He believed avoidance and passivity became conditioned habits, but assertiveness could be conditioned through repetition. You won't be trained in how to be assertive in a therapy office. You need a villain to practice on. Only one problem with all of this. It's all just theories, concepts, ideas. What does the actual evidence-based research tell us? A 2022 study explored the effects of assertiveness training and stress management training on resilience and self-regulation in adolescent female students. The researchers wanted to know if training would improve emotional control and resilience under stress. They wanted to know if assertiveness training could improve emotional functioning and coping ability. The participants underwent assertiveness and stress management training. The training largely focused on communication skills, emotional regulation, and their behavioral response under pressure. The researchers then measured changes in resilience and self-regulation. The goal was to see whether these skills could be strengthened through structured behavioral training. They found significant improvements in both. The core conclusion was clear: self-regulation and resilience improved through training. In 2024, two researchers did a study on assertiveness training effects in the workplace. Their focus was on whether assertiveness training could help people handle difficult workplace conversations in a more constructive way. The researchers recognized that many employees struggle with direct communication at work. Some avoid difficult conversations, some become passive, some become overly agreeable to avoid tension, some became aggressive. The study supported the idea that assertiveness training helped participants communicate more directly, approach conflict more constructively, and better navigate difficult interpersonal situations in the workplace. This matters because assertiveness is not just a personal development skill. It affects how people function professionally. If you cannot communicate clearly under pressure, that problem will eventually show up at work, in leadership, and in every difficult conversation you avoid. In 2020, researchers looked at assertiveness training benefits among patients with schizophrenia. They wanted to see if it would improve functional remission and assertiveness levels with the clinical population. Could assertiveness training improve their assertiveness levels, functional remission, and interpersonal functioning? Understand, people with schizophrenia often struggle in social settings. They struggle with communication problems. These patients often have low confidence and a real difficulty expressing needs. Assertiveness training has proved effective elsewhere, so why not here too? The researchers measured social functioning, remission outcomes, and assertiveness levels. They found that assertiveness training improved the participants' overall assertive communication. This matters because the study showed assertiveness training can help even in serious clinical populations. In this video, we covered 7 different concepts within psychology. There is one common denominator solution among all of them, and it is assertiveness training. If what I discussed wasn't enough to convince you, I followed it up with 3 evidence-based research examples that support the same idea. Look, if you're coming to me, you have an issue with assertive communication. And you know what? It's okay. It really is. I did too for several years until I learned my way out of it. I'm offering you an olive branch here. You don't need to sit in rumination for years. You don't need to live as a side character in your own life. You can choose to go after what you want directly and respectfully. Direct and respectful communication is how I define assertive communication. I can teach you this skill, and trust me, your mental health is starved for it.